nigga. Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, get on that ass real quick one time. 144, baby.
They said you get on, you gon' represent. I said, of course. Soon as they crank that beat, I ride that bitch just like a horse. She about to go dumb, yeah, bitch, me whole car. Yeah, ain't know they call me Obi-Wan. I go with the force. You gon' ride, yeah, of course. Get it lit up like a torch. You either low or this Lord. Told that bitch is either or. Yeah, I know them niggas ain't cut like that. I swear I'm too hardcore. Wait up, let me make a call right quick. I'ma start another war. I was hurting when she left, but I don't care about anymore. I need a Vaseline like my Nina Puffer Ford. Took a Zach, watch the door. Matter of fact, lock the door. Any problem, let them come. We gon' snatch they soul like Shang Tsung. Put them out of service, keep them tools like Miss Hopper Free. Try to hold me, it's way too late. I'm headed straight to the safe. Throw that one up like a trophy. I'm that nigga, ain't no debate. Told them boys we taking over. Call them up like set the date. This shit a piece of cake. Yeah, my bitches came from Whole Foods. Told them put on that top 3. Then bring me my house shoes. Don't make excuses, make moves. These niggas ungrateful, gotta show them UPK rules. I'm make hits like I can't lose. They said you get on, you gon' represent. I said of course. Soon as they crank that beat, I ride that bitch just like a horse. She about to go dumb, yeah, bitch, me whole car. You ain't know they call me Obi-Wan. I come with the force. You gon' ride, yeah, of course. Get it lit up like a torch. You either low or this Lord. Told that bitch is either or. Yeah, I know them niggas ain't cut like that. I swear I'm too hardcore. Yeah, I just got off the call. I'ma start another war. Spit a plate up with my niggas. Get your knife and your fork. He ain't locked in with the count. And what you speaking to me for? Yeah, I just took the floor. Ain't no cowards in my campaign. They can't stop the campaign. Tell them bring the champagne. They know I'm a champion. They can see the outcome. Get them niggas bad. Got them tied down and out there. Can't do with them steppers. Niggas been down since day one. We run up the bands, bitch, like Dylan. They say you get on, you gon' represent. I said, of course. Soon as they crank that beat, I ride that bitch just like a horse. Yeah, about to go dumb. Yeah, bitch, we whole car. Yeah, ain't know they call me Obi-Wan. I come with the force. You gon' ride, yeah, of course. Get it lit up like a torch. You either low or this low. Told that bitch is either or. I told you niggas, you ain't cut like that. I swear I'm too hardcore. And I just made the call. We gon' start another war. Yeah.
Shalom Israel, Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. Start out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Yohana. It's the Monday night scripture breakdown class. You know, we break down the scripture, something that your Christian pastor will never do in a million years because, of course, he's not equipped because he has a different agenda. He doesn't have the same agenda as the Most High. He has the agenda of your oppressor. That's why in every Christian church, they got a portrait of white Jesus when Christ in the scriptures is described as black. That's why when you go in the script or when you go in the Christian church, they say that God loves everybody and Christ died for everybody. When God doesn't love everybody in the Bible, and in the Bible, Christ says that he came for his people. That's why all these lies are being taught in the script or in the Christian churches and all these Christian Israelite groups, all these purple Israelite groups and all these fake Israelite groups who are bound to fail and are destined to fail because they just don't teach the truth. But here in the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, that's what we do. So if you got any questions or comments, you go put them in the chat. We'll get to them, Lord willing, tonight. Shalom, Yahal Bashim Yahshua Brakatham to all the brothers. Shalom, Yahal Shmalatham Bashim Yahshua to all the sisters. Salakia. Tonight's topic is sobriety, being sober. All right. You know, your Christian church and, you know, what you was taught from birth or from as a youth, as a child, you was taught that being sober was, I mean, the difference between getting high or not getting high, or having a drink or not having a drink, or doing drugs or not doing drugs. And all of those things, you know what I mean, if you don't, you know what I'm saying, you don't do drugs, you don't drink in inappropriate situations, so you don't get high, you know what I'm saying? That's all sobriety as well. But what you don't understand because of the Christian church is sobriety is a lot more than that. We don't get into it tonight. We're gonna explain sobriety according to the scriptures. And we're gonna break it down right now. All right. So again, if you got any questions or comments, you go ahead and put them in the chat. You hecklers included. You know what I mean, you're always more than welcome to come in. I mean, drop your, you know, whatever you got to do. You know what I'm saying? You're more than welcome to come in the chat and do whatever you got to do. And I mean, Lord willing, well, I'm going to leave that alone. Salakia. Salakia. Bear with me just 1 second. I'll pull up the chat. All right, let's go ahead and start with Salakia, 1 more second. Just bear with me just a second. We're going to start with Isaiah chapter 29. All right. I mean, if you participate in class, I suggest you take notes. I mean, have your notebook, have all your learning utensils present and ready in front of you so that we can all learn together as a family. We're going to go into Isaiah chapter 29. We're going to start at verse 9. All right. Now I know that every, you know what I mean, I already know on every social media platform, I know that Cat Williams interview, you know, that interview is going crazy right now. And what that brother is was bringing out, that brother was talking about was very heavy. He was talking about all the things that goes on in the famous life, for lack of a better term. You know what I mean? The things you got to do, the things you got to say, the things you got to lie about, convince people about. And that goes right into the topic because, again, being drunk isn't, or being sober isn't just talking about drugs or alcohol or lack thereof. And we gonna get into it. Let's go ahead and read this and then we're gonna break it down, all right? It's the book of Isaiah chapter 29, verse 9. Salakia. And it reads, "Stay yourself and wonder, cry ye out and cry. They are drunken, but not with wine. They stagger, but not with strong drink." So what you got to understand is being drunk, which is one way. If you look at somebody and you see that they drunk, or you deem them as drunk, you assume that they've been drinking. But let's go ahead and read it again. It says they are drunken. So this is how we determine whether somebody is in their right mind, right? Whether they've had one too many drinks, whether they done smoked whatever they done smoked, whatever the case is. But the scripture says they are drunken, but not with wine. So how are you drunk without wine? Well, that's what we came in to talk about tonight. Reading on, we're going to break it down. All right. They stagger, but not with strong drink. Meaning, I mean, you have your one too many drinks and you get the stumbling, stammering, slurring, all of that. Well, a lot of people in general, but specifically a lot of our people are doing all those things. They're drunken, but they not drunk with wine. And they stammering, they staggering, they fumbling, they tumbling, tripping, they slurring, they doing all these things. But it's not because of strong drink. It's not because they had a shot of Douce. That's not why they tripping. That's not why they stumbling. That's not why they making poor decisions. So what you got to understand is you can be drunk. You can be drunk off of. You can be drunk, but it ain't got nothing to do with strong drink. It ain't got nothing to do with wine, or it ain't got nothing to do with strong drink, no alcohol or none of that. Ain't got nothing to do with ain't got nothing to do with none of that. What you got to understand is a lot of us blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are drunk off of. You can be drunk off of. Well, let's go ahead and get it in the Bible, because we just got it in Isaiah chapter 29 that being drunk doesn't mean calm, brother. We don't go ahead get it in the scriptures, but you can be drunk off of a lot. You know what I mean? You be drunk off of a lot. Let's go ahead and Apocrypha and get the book of Titus. All right. Book of Titus chapter 2. And we're going to start at verse 1. And I mean, going back to that Cat Williams interview, I mean, I know that's the talk of the town. I know that's what everybody is, you know what I mean, tuning into or has been for the past couple of days. I know it's probably old news by now. You know what I mean, you know how quick news becomes you know what I'm saying, new and old to our people. But you know what I mean, this brother was bringing out something heavy. He was bringing out a lot of, you know what I mean, a lot of the things that go on in Hollywood, especially in Black Hollywood. You know what I mean, dealing with our own people. Salakia, bear with me 1 second. Salakia. But he was bringing out a lot of the type of things that goes on, you know what I mean, in Black Hollywood. Right? So you got I mean, brothers trying to undercut one another. You got brothers dealing with brothers and sisters dealing with drug abuse. You got LGBTQ activity. You got liars. You got all these different things going on. You got brothers exchanging I don't know how to say this, Salakia, for the sake of this sensitive internet. You got brothers who are exchanging sexual favors for, you know what I'm saying, a particular position in the world. You got brothers compromising their integrity for a particular position in, you know what I'm saying, for the sake of fame and riches and all of that. Which is, you know what I'm saying, which is another thing you could be drunk off of. But what what kind of stood out to me, I mean, not to take a shot at this brother, because what he, you know what I'm saying, not to take away from his whole point of the interview, but a lot of, you know what I'm saying, what the brother missed, and what a lot of brothers miss in the especially in the celebrity world, and especially in the just the world in general. You know what I mean, amongst Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, what we miss is, you know what I mean, is drug abuse, and the particular thing that we're drunk off of. So that's the topic of the class tonight. So the question that I want to pose to Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans is, what are you drunk off of? I mean, what are you drunk off of? Because it's easy to point the finger and look at somebody else and be like, oh, they tripping, they doing this, they doing that, they tripping, they this, that, and the third. It's always easy to look at somebody else and be like, this is what you need to be doing. And this is how you need to change, and blah, 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 blah. But what are you doing? What are you drunk off of? And that's the whole point. Because being drunk or being sober has nothing to do with being, or it's not completely, I mean, when we hear that word, we think of what you had to drink, what you've been smoking, or whatever the case is. But it's deeper than that. We gonna get into it. This is the book of Titus, chapter 2, verse 1. It reads, but speak thou the things which become sound doctrine. All right. So we talk about, like the brother said in the chat, I mean, the premise, the main premise of these fake Israelite groups, or these individualites, or the excuse for these, you know what I mean, for these people to be drunk off of whatever they want to be drunk off of, or for them to leave the truth, for anybody to leave the truth or not follow the rules of the truth, or whatever the case is like the brother said in the chat. The first thing that brothers want to accuse especially the ISUPK of, is teaching false doctrine. That's the first thing brothers want to accuse brothers of, you know what I mean, in the ISUPK. But this chapter, or this book chapter and verse is going, or this book and chapter is going to tell you what sound doctrine. The sound doctrine is the opposite. Slacking. Sound doctrine is the opposite of false doctrine. We're going to get verse 2. That the aged men be sober. All right. So we just established that sobriety isn't just having one too many drinks, two too many drinks, whatever the case is, or having something to smoke, or whatever the case is. You know what I mean? And also, you should definitely observe those things. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You turn into an alcoholic. You turn into what's the word? Drug addict. You turning into, you know what I mean? You abusing certain things. You definitely want to be observant of those things, those carnal, you know what I mean, those things like that. But you also want to be aware that sobriety, or lack thereof, doesn't end with just having a drink or not having a drink, because that's what the Christian church does. You know what I mean? The Christians, you know what I mean, in the church, you know what I mean, they'll refuse to have, you know what I mean, a little bit of tequila, a little bit of scotch, or, you know what I mean, whatever the case is, and feel like they being righteous because they don't drink. But then they turn around and then they abuse their children. Or they feel like they righteous because they don't get high, which you absolutely shouldn't be getting high. But they'll feel like they're righteous because they don't put that blunt to their lips, but they got a LGBTQ member directing the choir full of LGBTQ, when the Bible is against that. And the Bible against all these things. So That's why it's so important for you to understand that sobriety doesn't just stop at just not having a drink, but it's talking about your behavior. And that's why we went into Isaiah chapter 29, so we can understand what sobriety is. You know what I mean? Sobriety ain't talking about. Salaki, let me go ahead and read before we finish with Titus. Let's go back to Isaiah chapter 29. We're gonna read verse 10. We're gonna start with verse 9 real quick. So it says, "Stay yourselves and wonder, cry ye not, and cry, or Salaki, cry ye out and cry. They are drunken, but not with wine. They stagger, but not with strong drink." So again, we just established that being drunk and being not being sober, that's not solely dealing with having drinks or, you know what I mean, getting high or whatever makes you not sober. Verse 10, "For the Lord hath poured upon you the spirit of deep sleep, and hath closed your eyes. The prophets and your rulers, the seers hath he covered." See, the reason why your eyes are covered, like we was just talking about, I mean, the reason why you think sobriety is just restricted to having a drink or, you know what I mean, getting high or whatever the case is because of your Christian church. Where, again, they'll tell you you can't drink. If you have a drink, you know what I mean, if you have a drink, then they'll convince you that you're sinning or you're a drunkard or this, that, and the third. So again, because of the Christian church, a lot of brothers and sisters up in there, they not drinking. What's the word they like to say? They say they abstain. They're abstinent from certain things. So they abstain from having a drink, which is absolutely lawful. Which is absolutely, you know what I'm saying? You could have a drink. But they'll abstain from that thing. But the things that it actually says to abstain from, to avoid, they do. So they won't have a drink because they think sobriety is the opposite of having a drink. So they won't have a drink, but they absolutely will eat pork, shrimp, crab, and lobster. That's what they'll do. But which one is in the Bible? Which one does the Most High tell you not to do? This is the confusion that we face when we dealing with sobriety. And it's coming out our pores at this point. Like it's this Christianity and these lies that we've been taught. It's like it's just embedded and woven into our family and what we pass down from generation to generation. It's just woven into us to where like every Black, Hispanic, and Native American has just every Black, Hispanic, and Native American has just a tad bit of Christianity in them. Whether you a Muslim, Buddhist, Baptist, Episcopal, whatever you call yourself, you got a tad bit of Christianity in you because of the lies that we've been taught by the Christian church. And that's because what we just read in Isaiah chapter 29 and verse 10. It says, "The prophets and your rulers, the seers, hath he covered." I mean, your Christian pastors, they're supposed to be your seers, so-called, the ones who have, you know what I mean, who can break down these scriptures. They're supposed to be the ones who can give you counsel on your marriage. They should be the ones to give you, you know what I mean, guidance and counsel on the scriptures, to give these breakdowns and all of that. You know what I mean? But they're not doing that. They're not doing that. Instead, you know what I mean, they're covering your eyes. They're covering your eyes to the point where you drunk and you don't even know that you're drunk. You don't even know that you're drunk. This holiday season just passed, and for some reason, you know what I mean, even though you don't have a chimney for what's his name, Santa Claus to come down. Even though you don't have a chimney for Santa to come down, you're still teaching your kids about Santa Claus. And even though you paying for them presents that you putting up under that tree, you're teaching your children that Santa Claus brought them presents. even if you done away with Santa Claus, because I know nowadays, black people, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, we like, look, we're not doing Santa Claus, but what you are gonna do is celebrate Christmas, like you just did. That's what you're gonna do, and that's what we just did as black people, Hispanic people, Native Americans. We did celebrate Christmas, even though we don't even believe in Santa Claus. We don't believe in Christmas, but we did celebrate it. Why? Now, if you don't believe in Santa Claus, and let's say hypothetically you do teach your children that Santa Claus ain't real, why are you keeping all the customs that they teach you on Santa Claus? If you don't believe in Santa Claus, why are you decorating your entire house with Santa Claus? If you don't believe in Christmas, you don't teach your kids about Christmas, why are you decorating your whole front yard saying Merry Christmas? If you don't celebrate Christmas, why are you decorating your whole house just like your neighbors? Just with the lights and with the tree all up in the house and the lights all over it and decking it with silver and gold. Why are you doing that if you don't believe in it? It's because we're drunk. See, what you don't understand about what we understand as, you know what I'm saying, what we understand is when you're drunk, you tend to do things that are out of your body. Like we like to that's why we like to go to the clubs. We like to go to the clubs and get bottles and get the section and all of that, so that when we do something, when we sleep with somebody who we don't know, or we had that one night stand, we cheat on, and let the Christian church tell it, or it's like, our sisters, they cheat on their husbands, and, brothers, you might sleep with a whore, in the world. What we like to do? I was faded last night, man, so I did this, that, and the third. So this woman that I didn't intend on making my wife, I knew she was a poor child. One second, we know that, this woman that we know is a poor choice to make a wife. We get a little alcohol in us, or we get a little, a little weed smoke in us. We get whatever your drug of choice is. You get that up on you, and then the next morning you like, well, I done did it. Well, it was the alcohol. What do? You blame it on the alcohol because you wasn't sober, or you blame it on the pills. You blame it on the weed. You blame it on whatever you was on because you wasn't sober. But what we got to understand is a lot of the decisions that we make in the world comes from not being sober, even though we ain't had a drink at all. We ain't, a lot of us ain't smoking weed. A lot of us ain't doing no hard drugs, or whatever the case is, whatever you consider. Like, we're not doing none of that, but a lot of times we make poor decisions because we not sober. All right, and that's what it's saying in Titus. And that's what, that's what Cat Williams was really talking about in his interview. Like, he was talking about all these crazy things that's going on in Hollywood. All the lies that's being passed around, all the LGBTQ activity going around, all the, he even touched on interracial marriage. He even touched on interracial marriage, where a brother, even though, a couple hundred years ago, we were, like, not even a couple hundred years ago. You take the Central Park Five, you take Trayvon Martin, you take what's his name? Jonathan Majors. Couple months ago, not even a couple months ago, maybe a couple weeks ago. The outcry and the lies of black women, or even black men, or Slovakia, the outcry and the lies of your oppressors, women and men, so-called white men and women, I mean, have cost blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans their life and career. I mean, whatever the case is. So these are things that we aware of. And these are valid reasons to absolutely stay away from your oppressors, you know what I'm saying, your oppressors' women. And if you're a sister, stay away from your oppressors' men. But what makes after 500 years of abuse and of slavery and of, you know what I mean, your towns are being burned down because of the outcry of women. You know what I mean? Ask Black Wall Street, ask Rosewood. You know what I mean? At that, you know what I'm saying? All these black towns, ask the 700 towns who are either burned down, destroyed, lynched, or underwater right now. Seneca Village. You know what I mean? Ask those towns what the result of dealing with your oppressor, you know what I mean? Trusting your oppressor. You know what I mean? I mean, just take a look at history. Just take a look at history. And, you know what I mean? History will tell you how toxic it is for how terrified you should be of dealing with your oppressor, especially on an intimate level. You know what I mean? But after 500 years of being abused by the same oppressor, after 500 years of being ignored by the same oppressor, after being, you know what I'm saying, seeing your oppressor's police force, your oppressor's military take the lives of blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, after you have a cry out and say, Black Lives Matter, and they respond with All Lives Matter, while simultaneously the LGBTQ community or the Asian community says stop hating, you know what I mean? Stop hating, or stop Asian hate, stop LGBTQ violence, or whatever the case is, stop LGBTQ hate. They get a law protecting them right off the bat. But then when you say Black Lives Matter, they ostracize you, and then they respond with, well, all lives matter. Well, blue lives matter. Green lives matter. Talking about the military and the police force. When you cry out against the abuse that's going on with you, they say, well, you say Black Lives Matter. They say, well, all lives matter. You know what I mean? So after all these years of all of that happening in your face, what makes you still want to choose your oppressor? To befriend, to have children with, to sleep with, or whatever the case is. What makes you still choose that? You know, you might not have had a drink. You might not have put a blunt to your lips. You might not have, whatever the case is. But that means you're drunk off of something else. You're drunk off of, well, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. But that's the question. What are you drunk off of? What are you drunk off of to where even after, what are you drunk off of to make you acknowledge and celebrate and study up on Juneteenth in June, and then right after that in July, put on red, white, and blue and celebrate the 4th of July with your oppressor? What are you drunk off of? To, even though you're aware of the 80s drug epidemic, where your oppressors planted drugs in your communities to purposely take the strength from our neighborhoods and our families, and for us to still go get high off of those same drugs and to go sell those drugs. What are you drunk off of to keep on repeating the mistakes of our ancestors? Even though you haven't had a drink. But we're going to talk about it. It's the book of Titus, chapter 2, verse 1. We're going to start from the top. Salakia. But speak thou the things which become sound doctrine. that the aged men be sober, grave, temperate, sound in faith, in charity, in patience. See, this what makes you sober. It's not talking about whether you have a drink. You know what I mean? Whether you whatever you do. You know what I mean? Even though you shouldn't be an alcoholic, you should watch what you drink. You shouldn't be getting high, popping pills, rolling up. You shouldn't be doing all those things. But sobriety is talking about your behavior. That's what you got to understand. Sobriety is talking about what you do. See, if you watch that Cat Williams interview, this brother was dropping it heavy. Like, he was dropping everything that goes on in Black Hollywood. He was dropping, you know what I mean, he was telling all the secrets. He was clearing things up. He was spilling all the beans. You know what I mean? He was bulletproof because, and he was like, and you know what I'm saying, at one point, I mean, just to, you know what I'm saying, just so you can understand what I'm talking about, just so you can understand the difference between, I mean, sobriety and the lack thereof. You know what I mean, this brother was like, he was dropping it heavy, and at one point, Shannon Sharp was like, you done had too much to drink. He moved the cup away from him. You know what I mean? He took the cup away from him, and Cat Williams was like, I'm not fueled by alcohol. I'm not fueled by anything. You know what I mean? He just telling the truth. I'm just telling the truth. And we gonna select you. And that's what the scriptures say too. Like, in the Apocrypha, scriptures say, you know what I mean, the strongest thing other than a woman, you know what I mean, is the truth. And he was like, that's why he felt bulletproof. That's why he was bulletproof. He was like, I'm not fueled by nothing. The truth, I'm just fueled by the truth. I mean, the truth I forget what exactly he said, but he was telling the truth. That's why he was able to speak with such confidence. So any question that he was being able to, or any question that he was being asked, he was speaking with confidence because he was telling the truth. And even though, you know what I mean, everybody that he was speaking up against looks a little, or they're a little bit more powerful, or they might look a little bit more powerful than him. They might look a little bit more famous, or whatever the case is, a little bit more rich than what he's portrayed to be. But he was like, I'm not worried about none of that. He was like, because I'm telling the truth. But then it got to a point, and I encourage brothers and sisters to go back and watch that. I mean, I know it's a little bit lengthy, but I encourage brothers and sisters to go back and watch that. Because it was at one point, you know what I mean, he was bulletproof. He was bulletproof, and because he was telling the truth. But then his drug habit came up. I mean, smoking marijuana came up, and what happened is he glorified it. He was like, he was talking about, you know what I mean? He was talking about, he smoked more than Snoop Dogg, and he got a personal blunt roller, and he smoked 20 blunts a day, and that's a problem that plagues Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans right now. Like, we worried about, you know what I mean? We worried about breaking generational curses, and which is fine, you know what I'm saying? We trying to generate generational wealth and all of that. That's the talk of the neighborhood, you know what I'm saying, amongst Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. But then we get to our habits, and we glorify, you know what I mean, getting high and, you know what I mean, being the most smokingest, brother or sister in the hood. I mean, that's what we do. And that's an issue that plagues Black, Hispanics, and Native American communities. But what we don't understand is that we shouldn't be getting high in the first place, and B, it just shows that it just undercuts our entire point. It just undercuts the entire thing. Like another thing that he said was, you know what I mean? Another thing that he said was, like again, he was talking a lot about, you know what I'm saying? I'm not influenced by anything and I'm never out of my right mind. And then when it got to that segment in the other story, and again, I don't mean to undercut his point, but it does have to be addressed that when it got to that part of the conversation, and it was like, well, this is I smoke 20 blunts a day because of my life, and you know I'm on the road and I don't get hungry and I don't get sleepy at normal times. Well, what after again? I'm gonna ask you after what the drug epidemic did for Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, what the Biden administration and Kamala Harris, you know what I'm saying, did in the 90s. You know what I mean? What the Reagan era did for Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, what makes us still run to these drugs? Like he said another thing too. He said he done been to jail and got pulled over, you know what I mean, X amount of times. And if you pull him over X amount of times because he has this habit, you pull him over X amount of times, he's gonna have this drug on him and he's gonna be smoking it. Now, after getting pulled over X amount of times, after going to jail for X amount of times for the same thing, what makes Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans keep doing this thing? It's what we're talking about tonight. That we're not sober. But it's not because we had one too many drinks. It's not even because it's partially that. It's partially due to alcoholism. It's partially due to our drug habits. But what we got to understand is what makes us not sober is our behavior. All right. Let's get Salakia. Reading on from Titus chapter 2, verse 2. That the aged men be sober. This is going to describe the behavior of a sober man, or what are we talking about? Okay, the aged man. All right. So the aged man in the scripture is, I mean, the brothers and sisters who are charged with the responsibility of leading Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, the younger generations. You know what I mean? So that's the whole point. I mean, it says that the aged man be sober, grave, temperate, sound in faith, in charity, impatient. Or Salakia, in patience. All right, so this is it's talking about sobriety, and it's describing the behavior of the aged man. So when you're older, or when you're you know what I mean, when you reach the Salakia. When you reach a certain level of education or whatever the case is, when you are seasoned in our culture, you know what I mean? Especially when you know what I mean? We got young brothers in the truth. We got older brothers in the truth. We got younger sisters, older sisters. You know what I mean? But when you're a young brother in the truth, especially, or when you're a young brother, and you have you feel like you got a certain stature or a certain level of understanding in a certain field, it's up to you to be able to lead the younger brothers. You know what I'm saying? These younger brothers might be older than you in age, but younger in experience, younger in you know what I mean, in season and understanding. So it's up to you to be able to guide these brothers. But those type of men have to be grave. The word grave means serious. You know what I mean? We got too many black, you know what I'm saying? We got too many of our brothers and sisters out here being silly, out here, you know what I mean? Just out here being silly and goofy and, you know what I mean? Just not taking the things that blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans go through on a regular basis and the things that we see and experience on a regular basis, we're not taking it serious. Like we making light of the condition that we in. I mean, it's, you know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with, you know what I'm saying, cracking a joke every now and then, laughing every now and then. But at the end of the day, the work of the Lord come first. And the question that has to be on everybody's mind is, how do we get out of this situation? I mean, how do we get out of this situation? How do we raise our children up to where, I mean, we not destroyed no more? I mean, so like what again? We like to talk about breaking generational curses. Well, to break these generational curses, we got to solve generational problems, and the answer to these generational problems are in these scriptures. And these problems that we face over time are serious. It's not this. It's really not a laughing matter. I mean, so when you if you want to be sober minded, you have to be a serious man. I mean, and these brothers in the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge are very serious. Commanding General Yohana is a serious brother. Even when he, you know what I'm saying, he might say something that might be funny to you. He might crack a joke or laugh a little bit. You know what I mean, on the internet or whatever the case is, on his TV or on his during classes or on the show that he put out. But he's very serious about the work of the Lord. And that's how brothers got to be. That's what this scripture is talking about. All right. Temperate, sound in faith, in charity, in patience. All right. So all of these things describe a sober brother. I mean, a brother who understands the condition that his people is in and the thing that's going on around them. I mean, that's what these things mean. Let's see, verse 3. The aged woman likewise. See, what you got to understand is the duties and the responsibility of sisters in the truth are not less than that of a man. I mean, I believe first Peter's, it said, it says, I mean, there's neither Greek nor Jew, male nor female. I mean, meaning the responsibility and the responsibility of, you know what I mean, keeping the law and, you know what I mean, keeping the law and being a light to other blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. That's no less for if you're a man, you still obligated to keep the law and be an example to our people. Same if you're a woman, you still required to be an example by your behavior, being sober. Verse 3 says, the aged woman likewise, that they be in behavior as becoming holiness. So these sisters also, just like brothers, you know what I mean, these sisters have to be separate from everybody else. I mean, we see on the internet that we, you know what I'm saying, we see in the battle of the sexes, we see in I mean, these sisters talking about you can't take me to what's it called, to Cheesecake Factory. You know what I mean? All these sisters getting on OnlyFans, and that's how they making a living. Meanwhile, they trashing men who refuse to do all of that and sell their body. You know what I mean? They trashing these men who got some integrity, who won't sell their body, who won't sell drugs, or who won't do this, that, and the third, these immoral things to make some money. And meanwhile, they boosting themselves up because they doing all sorts of crazy things on the internet. You know what I mean? All sorts of sexual acts and favors on the internet or in person. You know what I mean? And they glorifying themselves. But this scripture just said that they be in behavior as becoming holiness. Meaning you can't I know it might look lucrative. I know it might look like the you know what I'm saying, I know it look like I know it's the wave right now. I mean, but you have to be separate from those things. I know it's the wave to, you know what I mean, show off your body and post these naked pictures on all these social media platforms. I know that's the wave, but the scripture just said that that these sisters have to be in behavior as becoming holiness. You have to be separate. These brothers too. I mean, like it says in Deuteronomy, that the Most High chose us to be a special people. I mean, above all nations of the earth. The only way that we can be above all nations of the earth is all nations of the earth is if we separate. Renowned as becoming holiness, not false accusers. Right? So you can't take your you know what I'm saying, the father of your children to child support court and, you know what I mean, make him fight for his children and take him away from his children and then, you know what I'm saying, cry crocodile tears to that judge so that he can take that man away from his children. And then once you do all of that, once you manipulate the oppressor's court system to, you know what I mean, to intentionally separate black families, once you successfully achieve the goal of your oppressor's court system in your drunkenness, then tell your children that their father didn't want them. They didn't want to see them, or I mean, whatever the case is, that the father didn't fight for y'all, and then turn your children against your baby's father after you just put in all that hard work to manipulate your oppressor against your, according to the Most High, your husband, because that's the man you slept with. I mean, so like you're not false accusers. You know what I mean? That man, you know what I mean? You over here running your mouth and putting your hands on your husband, your baby's father. You around here throwing knives and pots and pans and then calling the police on your husband. And then when the police come in, you crying crocodile tears and trying to get your husband or your baby's father, you know what I mean, locked up and worse, you know what I mean, his life taken. You can't do that. If you want to be sober, so again, like if you're not having a drink or if you're not getting high, what are you not sober? Or how are you not sober? Well, you can be drunk off of a lot of things. You can be drunk off of power. You could be drunk off of emotion, which is what a lot of brothers and sisters is drunk off of. I mean, you could be drunk off of pain. You could be drunk off of, you know what I mean, drunk off of money, which is what Cat Williams was talking about in the interview. I mean, these brothers and sisters are so drunk off of fame, drunk off of power, drunk off of emotion, drunk off of, you know what I mean, respect, or whatever the case is, whatever you name it, that they willing to do anything. They willing to go and bend over for some oppressor. You know what I mean? They willing to put on a dress. They willing to do any drug, do all these things. But blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, we got to understand that sobriety goes deeper than just having a drink or, you know what I mean, getting high. But you got to check your emotions. Are your emotions getting the best of you? Are you so drunk off of emotion that logic don't register to you? Are you so drunk off of your emotions or on your feelings, or drunk off of your wants, that you're willing to jeopardize your family for what you want? Are you willing to jeopardize your integrity for what you want? A lot of times that's what we drunk off of. Even you know what I mean, a lot of times, like, cause to this day, you know what I mean, we don't even think that getting high, you know what I mean, you know what I'm saying, smoking a little weed, we don't even think that that's a problem. And that's us being drunk as well. Cause again, that's us being drunk as well. We're drunk off of the feeling that we get from getting high. Like like a lot of us, and like that interview, like what you should do is, when you watching anything, especially when you in class, or, you know what I'm saying, when you in class, you should watch class and reflect. You know what I mean? When you getting breakdowns, or when you hear a certain type of person getting chastised in class, or a certain character, for lack of better explanation, you should listen to that and listen to it for yourself and reflect. Because a lot of times we drunk off of, you know what I mean, trying to chastise our brother, chastise our sister, chastise our husbands, and chastise our wives. We so drunk off of that we can't even see the thing that we doing. Like you know what I mean? Even during that interview, the brother, you know what I'm saying? The brother was saying, you know what I mean? Again, he was exposing all the things as he should, you know what I mean? Dropping it heavy for all the brothers and sisters in Hollywood, and all the brothers and sisters, you know what I mean, in the world, or whatever the case, or in the, you know what I mean? And I don't even know what to call it. What's the opposite of Hollywood? But, you know what I mean? His brother was dropping it heavy, but then again, we circled around we ended up getting to drug use, and that part got glorified. You know what I mean? The lies that go on in Hollywood, that got shamed as it should. You know what I mean? The drunkenness and the drug use get shamed as it should be. You know what I mean? You should feel ashamed for those things. But then we get around to marijuana, you know what I mean? That's glorified. You know what I mean? Smoking 20 blunts a day is glorified. You know what I mean? Having a personal blunt roller because you smoke so much weed is glorified, to the point where now, you know what I mean, you got sisters, you know what I mean, blowing weed smoke in they kids' face. You know what I mean? You got sisters and brothers, you know what I mean, having their kids hit the blunt as toddlers. You know what I mean? So where do we draw the line? What's old enough to smoke? Well, we gonna talk about it, because it's like here. But I mean, what's old enough to smoke? What's old enough to get high? I mean, because what was interesting is the brother said, I mean, he had to smoke and he needs to take he called it medicine, which is something that blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans do often. You know what I mean? We do that all the time when we dealing with our our habits. I mean, we call it medicine, especially when it comes to getting high. You know what I mean? We smoking that weed, we call it medicine. We like, and what the brother said was, this is my medicine. You know what I mean? Cause I work so hard, I tour so much. I mean, this is the only thing that's gonna help me eat and sleep. That's the narrative. What you gotta understand is that's the narrative of every Black, Hispanic, and Native American. Well, they getting high and they doing whatever habit that they got. That's the same reason why, brothers is popping Adderalls. They popping Vicodins and Percocets, and they, taking these pills, and they drinking excessively. They smoking they cigarettes, they smoking weed, they doing all the things that they doing. It's the same reason, to regulate themselves, because they in hell and they got to do certain things to survive. But what we do in the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge is we teach brothers how to be sober minded. You don't have to lean on drugs or alcohol. You don't have to lean on your vices to get, to get answers or to regulate yourself. But what you can do is get counsel. What you can do is get real answers from the men of the Lord right here. You know what I mean? A lot of us got the same excuse. A lot of us is like, oh, I need to take my medicine. I can't even count how many times I done heard that from brothers. You know what I'm saying? Brothers and sisters. Where it's like, oh, I'm you know what I'm saying? And you saw it too. You saw it when you visited your family at that Thanksgiving, I guess, party or celebration, you know what I mean? Or at that Christmas celebration, you know what I mean? Where a couple of the cousins went to step outside to get high so that they can tolerate being around their family. You seen it. But what we got to understand is, like, and then the excuse is, oh, I just, you know what I'm saying? This helps me, clear my mind, or this helps me go to sleep. This helps me eat, because without it, I don't eat. Well, what you got to understand about that is your first blunt wasn't, I'm willing to bet. Tell me if I'm wrong. You know what I'm saying? If you watching, if you in the chat, you know what I mean? Tell me if I'm wrong. But I'm willing to bet 100% that your first blunt wasn't you didn't have your first blunt because you were having trouble sleeping. That's not why you smoked your first blunt. Or because you was having trouble sleeping. That's not why you smoked your first blunt. Your first blunt, just like Cat Williams, your first blunt wasn't because he said that any city he in, he gonna be caught with some weed, and he gonna be smoking it because it helps him sleep and it helps him eat because of his job. But I guarantee his first blunt wasn't because he was on tour or because he was having trouble sleeping or eating. His first blunt was probably because when he was 13, just like most of us, when we was too young. So what we got to understand is us getting high and us, you know what I mean, doing what we do, the things that we do, you know what I'm saying, all our habits that we lean on that cloud our judgment. It's not because of what we saying it is. It's because we just like doing it, or because it helps us sleep, or it helps us get the munchies so that we can eat everything in the house. It's not because of those things. It's not because of those things. And the reason why we continue to do it isn't because of those things. It's because of the real problem isn't The real problem isn't, you know what I mean, the lack of sleep or lack of, you know what I'm saying, hunger or lack of sex drive or none of that. The real problem is trauma and abuse and the hell that we live in. So what we need is counsel. What we need is what we need is counsel, and that counsel is going to prevent us from being drunk off of our emotions, to make us lean on these drugs, to make us lean on this alcohol, to make us lean on these strange pills or these strange mixtures, lean and all of that, and whatever the hell brothers and sisters is doing nowadays. You know what I mean? These strange lifestyles. I mean, what's gonna keep us from leaning on those things? It's counsel. Changing our behavior. I mean, learning how to control ourselves, learning how to grow and learn from, you know what I mean, learning how to take our experiences, learn right from wrong so that we don't repeat those things. Cuz a lot of things, another thing too, like we lean on those drugs, those pills, that alcohol because of the trauma, you know what I'm saying? Same with the LGBTQ community. I mean, LGBTQ community lean on that lifestyle not because they just love it, not because that's just who they were. It's because of what you're seeing. You're seeing abuse, or you've been abused yourself. You're seeing, you know what I mean, these LGBTQ influencers in your TV shows on social media. You're seeing those things. Your children are seeing those things, which is borderline child abuse, which is child abuse. Just sidebar, but that's why you do those things. It's not because you want to do them. That's where it comes from. Because you were abused. Because you were exposed to this abuse. Or you were exposed to you were exposed to the product of this abuse. That's why. Now, why? You know it's crazy. You know it's crazy. You know it's crazy, and at the same time makes perfect sense. Is that every child that was abused, or every, you know what I mean, every brother or sister that was abused as a child, uh, lucky. But every child that was abused or every adult that was abused as a child, you know what I mean, they lean into the abuse, meaning, you know what I'm saying, brothers and sisters who was abused as a child, they grow up and become either sexual deviants themselves, or they become, you know what I'm saying, including, you know what I'm saying, LGBTQ, or, you know what I mean, OnlyFans models, or whatever the case is. But that's what our brothers and sisters become after after the abuse. But what's gonna heal our brothers and sisters isn't to lean into the abuse. You know what I mean? Same with, you know what I'm saying, alcoholics, you know what I'm saying, brothers who grew up in homes who were, you know what I'm saying, run by alcoholics, grow up to be alcoholics. Brothers and sisters who grew up in homes where, you know what I mean, their parents were you know what I mean, drug addicts. I mean, whatever the drug is, you grow up to either, you know what I'm saying, to lean on that drug. But the whole point is to change our behavior. That's what sobriety is. You know what I mean? That's what the whole point, that's the whole conclusion of the matter. To change our behavior. You know what I mean? Because a lot of us, we out here stammering and stumbling and fumbling and slurring and all of those things, but it's not because of strong drink. You know what I mean? It's not because of too much. It's not because of none of that. You know what I mean? In the spirit. It's because of what we allow to influence us. It's because of what we do. Let's see. We know in the book of Titus, chapter 2, verse 3, not given to too much wine. All right, so if we're talking about sobriety and brothers and sisters, I mean, it's talking about, it just named holiness, which is being separate from what everybody else is doing, not false accusers, not liars. And now we're talking about not giving to too much wine. So if sobriety just pertains to having too much to drink or to too much to smoke, then why are we talking about it right here? Again, it should be implied. What you got to understand is sobriety is deeper than that. It's saying not giving to too much wine. Right? To know when to drink and when not to drink. When you've had enough. You know what I mean? That's part of being sobriety, so that you can be clear-minded, so that you can make decisions. All right? Teachers of good things, and then so that you can, you know what I mean, so that you can teach other brothers and sisters how to move in this hell. Because a lot of times, you know what I'm saying, you take it off of drugs and alcohol. You know what I mean? You take it off of drugs and alcohol. If you drunk off of emotion, if you're so emotional that, you know what I mean, you just, every decision that you make is based on how you feel. Or this is another thing too. Like what, a lot of things that we do, you know what I'm saying, something that we do a lot of the time is, you know what I mean, we'll do something that we know is wrong. You know what I mean? You got sisters keying brothers' cars and slashing tires. You got brothers and sisters, you know what I'm saying, splitting up their families. You got brothers who will put their hands on their wives, or you got sisters who will, you know what I mean, put their hands on their husband. And, you know what I mean, you name it. You name it. You know what I mean? You got mothers and fathers abusing their children and this, that, and the third. You name it. And the whole explanation would be like, well, I'm not, this ain't me. This ain't what I do. This ain't me. This ain't how I usually act. I was just mad. You just made me so mad that this, that, and the third. I just did this, and I was so angry, and you did that because you were drunk off of emotion. And when you drunk off of emotion, or you drunk off of rage, anger, or whatever the case is, whatever you drunk off of that clouds your judgment, it keeps you from making sound decisions, man. And when you can't make a sound decision, you damn sure can't teach your children, your brothers, your sisters to make sound decisions. Verse 4, that they may teach the young women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children. See, the whole point is so that you can have a clear mind. The whole point is so you can have a clear mind, so that you can teach younger brothers and younger sisters to have a clear mind and move properly, you know what I mean, under the Most High. You know what I mean, under the Most High's law, statutes, and commandments. That's the whole point. Verse 5, to be discreet, chaste, keepers at home, good, obedient to their own husband, that the word of God be not blasphemed. See, these are all behavior qualities. Now, if you're too drunk off of emotion, or too drunk off of your pain, too drunk off of your trauma, to where you constantly making poor decisions and blaming it on your trauma or your hardship, you know what I'm saying? You could be too drunk off your slavery. Be drunk off your slavery to the point where now, because of your slavery, you gotta lean on certain substances, or doing whatever you got to do to make sure you keep your slavery, or you doing whatever you got to do to rise in power in your slavery or your job, for brothers in the world who don't know what I'm talking about. But you can be drunk off of anything. Anything can take your sobriety. Your sobriety it doesn't have anything to do with how much you had to drink or how much you done smoked. Or slack, I ain't gonna say anything to do with it, but it's not just limited to how much you had to drink or smoke or whatever the case is or whatever you on. You know what I mean? It's like what Beyonce say, drunk in love. You know what I'm saying? You could be drunk off of anything. Anything could take your sobriety. Let's see. Let's get a couple more. Get a couple more. Salakia. Let's get Proverbs chapter 16, verse 32. And it reads, "He that is slow to anger is better than a mighty, and he that ruleth his spirit than he that taketh the city." See, a lot of blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, you know what I mean, especially when we look at Hollywood, when we look at Hollywood, we look at you know what I'm saying, our relatives, you know what I mean, we look at brothers and sisters with, you know what I'm saying, a certain lifestyle, financial, what we call it, generational wealth, financial stability, or whatever the case is. We look at things like that, and we look at that as a, you know what I'm saying, we look at conquering, you know what I'm saying, brothers who, you know what I'm saying, go to join the military and get all these awards and accolades and come back with all these medals pinned to they lapel and all of that. We look at those things as you know what I'm saying, mighty. But scripture just said, "He that is slow to anger is better than the mighty." So we all want to go out there and get, you know what I'm saying, we all want to get out there and conquer. The Lord don't need you to conquer. You know what I'm saying? Which is, you know what I'm saying, it's nothing wrong with conquering. It's nothing wrong with, you know what I mean, conquering for the Most High. It's nothing wrong with, you know what I'm saying, we do it all the time. We get out there, we take cities. You know what I mean, we got brothers in here who build camps, raise up men and women and children, raise up families, give counsel. So there's nothing wrong with conquering. But what's better than conquering is being slow to anger and ruling over your spirit. That's what's better than, you know what I'm saying? We all want to get out there and conquer, but the Lord don't need you to conquer. He needs you to have rule over your spirit. He needs you to have control over your emotions. He needs you to be obedient. We all want to conquer. We all want to get some clout and some notoriety in the world. The Lord don't need none of that. He's not looking for none of that. First thing, what's mightier than conquering or having notoriety or clout or money or fame is having rule over your emotions. Not being emotional and then letting your emotions dictate whether you get high or not, dictate whether you get drunk or not, dictate whether you obey your husband or not, or whether you're kind to your wife and your children or not. Not letting your emotions dictate whether you get counsel or not, whether you follow instructions or not. That's what's better than being some warlord or some conqueror. I mean, that's so important, man. That's so important because that's where it all starts. Like, if you don't have any rule over your spirit, if you don't have any rule over your emotions, then there ain't no telling what you're gonna do. Ain't no telling what you're gonna end up doing. You know what I mean? You ain't got no, you volatile. You ain't got no control over what you know what I'm saying, your emotions. You bound to say anything. You bound to do anything. You bound to offend your brother. You know what I mean? On a smaller scale, you bound to take life. You bound to, you know what I mean, sleep with anybody. You bound to do any drug. You bound to be influenced by anything. All it takes is for you to, you know what I mean, the right person to get on your ear. You know what I mean? All it takes is for the right person to say the right thing. And that's how we end up getting kicked out of the garden. You know what I mean? That's all it takes. For, you know what I mean, if you ain't got rule over your spirit to follow instructions, you ain't got rule over your spirit to do what's right. All it takes is for some serpent to get in your ear and tell you, you know what I mean, this, that, and the third. I mean, just like that serpent got in Eve's ear. And she followed after the instructions of the serpent. And then she took that to her husband because her husband was weak under his woman. Then, and he ain't have rule over his spirit. Then he followed her instructions rather than the Most High's instructions. And now the whole purpose, you know what I'm saying, ever since then, we've been trying to fight our way back into the garden, back into the Lord's protection. It's not because, you know what I'm saying, Adam in the garden, you know what I'm saying, he wasn't drunk. He wasn't, you know what I'm saying, he wasn't drunk off of wine. He wasn't, you know what I'm saying, it don't say nothing in the scriptures about him being drunk off of wine. It don't say nothing about him being, you know what I mean, getting high or none of that. But he wasn't thinking clearly. He wasn't thinking clear enough to be able to follow the Lord's instructions, even though his wife had been beguiled. And Eve wasn't thinking clearly to be able to tell or not obey the serpent, but obey her husband. That's being sober. It's like you can get one more. You get Ecclesiasticus Salakia. Ecclesiasticus chapter 30, verse 21. It reads, "Give not over thy mind to heaviness, and afflict not thyself in thine own counsel." So that's what we was talking about earlier. See, you always want to get counsel. I mean, you always want to. I mean, the whole sobriety is being able to make sound decisions, and the only way that you can make sound decisions is to get counsel before you do. The scriptures say, "Do nothing without counsel." Do nothing without counsel. But if you not, you know what I mean, if you drunk off of your emotions, you know what I mean, you just gonna jump. You know what I mean? You just gonna jump at the, you know what I'm saying, you upset, you emotional, or whatever the case is, you just gonna react off your emotions and then say Salakia later. You know what I mean? You're gonna be out here moving rogue. You're gonna be out here doing all sorts of whatever. You know what I mean? Just moving by yourself. You know what I'm saying? You're not gonna be serving the Most High. You know, every brother, sister, Yahweh Bashim Yahushua Brakatah, you know what I mean? You big saluting, Yahweh Shamar Lathan Bashim Yahushua, all of that. You know what I'm saying? You doing that, but then get a little bit, you know what I mean? All it takes is for you to get just a little bit emotional. And you serving yourself. And then saying Salakia later. It says, "Give not over thy mind to heaviness." You know what I mean? All it takes, you know what I mean, a lot of times, you know what I mean, all it takes, and what you got to understand is when you come into truth, you know what I mean, when you come into the truth, especially, the Lord is going to test you. You're going to be tested. You know what I mean? So you might go through things that might make you angry, make you sad, make you you know what I mean, you might be poor. You might you know what I'm saying, you're gonna come in the truth, and you know what I'm saying, the scriptures say prepare your soul for temptation. You know what I mean? So you're gonna come in the truth, you're gonna experience certain things that's gonna test you. But we just read, give not over thy mind to heaviness. That's how you lose your sobriety. That's how you lose your ability to make sound decisions. I mean, instead of giving yourself over to hardship or to difficulty, giving your mind over to the emotional or your emotional, or how you want to respond emotionally. The next part say, afflict not thyself in thine own counsel. Meaning, you know what I'm saying, you consulting with yourself. You know what I mean? You going through these things and you thinking about these things in your head and you just keeping it all in your head. You're not getting counsel. Who's your counselor? Who's making your decisions for you? When you in your head, that demon is making that decision for you. That's why it's important to get counsel. That's why it's important to get counsel, obey counsel, go to counsel, take brothers and sisters to counsel, all of those things, man, so that we can make sound decisions. See what you got in the chat. But if we do those things, if we get counsel on certain things, we get counsel on everything. Salakia, like it said in the scriptures, do nothing without counsel. So if you get in the habit of getting counsel, obeying counsel, taking brothers and sisters to counsel, or whatever the case is, then you can know that whatever your next move is your best move. You know what I mean? But that's the whole point. That's the whole point. Because otherwise, you just that's how otherwise, you know what I'm saying? That's how we avoid, you know what I mean, leaning on drugs or alcoholism or sex or whatever you leaning on, or you know what I'm saying, abusing one another or violence or you name it, whatever decision you make in your anger or in your heaviness or your whatever under the influence of some substance, you can avoid making those type of mistakes just by getting counsel. So what you should ask, you know what I'm saying, what you should ask yourself is, you know what I mean, what are you drunk on? Are you drunk on anything? What are you drunk on? What's keeping you from being sober? What's keeping you from having a clear head? I mean, what do you feel? What have you not taken? You know what I mean? What have you not Matthew 18:15 that brother or sister about? You know what I mean? What are you not getting counsel on? And what you got to do is beware, or you just got to beware of those things, because if you don't handle those things accordingly, if you leaning on yourself, and if you leaning on yourself and you know what I mean, not getting those things addressed, not taking those things to counsel, not getting counsel, then you're gonna make a decision that, you know what I mean, you're gonna make a decision that you're definitely gonna regret, and you're gonna, you know what I mean, after you see the consequences, then it's gonna be too late. Once you do something out of sobriety, once you do something that's, you know what I mean, once you do something that, Salakia, once you do something, you know what I'm saying, out of emotion or out of, you know what I mean, whatever the case is, in the spur of the moment, then, you know what I mean, that's just what it is. And it's a lot of those things, a lot of those mistakes that we make, you know what I mean, out of our sobriety can't be reversed. But with that, you know what I mean, there's no questions or comments, You know what I mean? We're going to go ahead close out the class. With that, we're going to say Imadium, which means to stand. Visual Major Shabbat. Imadium. Barak. Yahabah Shim Yashar Brakatum. Yajim Matah. Sar. Turn and face the sisters. Give a courtesy salute to the sisters. Individual Major Shabbat. Imadium. Barak. Yahweh Shemar Latham Ba Shim Yashar. Yajim Matah. Dismiss.